Yeah, so here we get to talk about Heart Theory, dropped August 14th, follow-up LP to the project. And I guess we got a lot to talk about. Kick us off though, here we are, album's been out a couple weeks, just coming into September. As we were just talking about, pretty strange times to do anything. Fill us in on what's keeping you busy and just what's going on the calendar for the foreseeable future as you're promoting the new record.
Yeah, Andrew, 2020 has been a whirlwind year as it has been for everybody. At the beginning of quarantine, I was finishing the record, then figuring out album artwork, then doing press for the album. And so it's been an interesting time to release a project. However, I really think that it's also a rewarding time to release a project as well, because I think people can absorb and consume art maybe now so more than ever. They have a little bit more time to listen to it. And so I have had a busy past few weeks, talking about the record and getting this music out there, but it has been so rewarding to see everybody's feedback from this music. The day the album dropped, I did a 24-hour live stream event. Nice. And I did a 24-hour show 5 years ago on Broadway. It was for the release of my single, and we raised a whole bunch of money for Children's Vanderbilt Hospital here in Nashville. And I swore to myself, I was like, this is the last time I'm ever gonna do it, because it was so exhausting. I literally stood on Broadway downtown Nashville and busked with my guitar case open for 24 hours straight. And so sure enough, fast forward 5 years later, in the middle of a global pandemic, and here I am, wanting to do another 24-hour live stream event. And I'm just like, okay, what does this really mean? What is this really going to take? And it actually ended up being so cool. I mean, it was very exhausting, but we were able to focus on every time zone around the world. So we started in Tonga, which is the time zone before New Zealand, this right. Tiny little country that I only knew existed from the Olympics. And we actually had the famous Olympian PETA from Tonga to kick things off. And then we went every time zone around the world. So we went Tonga to New Zealand, to Australia, to Japan, and had athletes to musicians, to writers, to actors, actresses, chefs, speakers. It was like a little bit of everything. It was so rewarding and so cool. And, in 24 hours, we got 23 million impressions. And it was just a really incredible way to celebrate the new music, raise money for my foundation, the Make You movement, and also, be able to bring the world together in this crazy time, to be like, hey, we're still all fighting this together.
Yeah. Oh, good on you. Great initiative. I was going to ask about that. But something else you mentioned, I wanted to jump on. Normally I wouldn't ask a question like this, but it's American Songwriter. And, that's not just some blog. That's a pretty esteemed publication. You're on the cover, and they call Heart Theory a career-altering record, which, relatively early into your career. But, I mean, we talked about how successful and great the project was. Like, all this to ask, I know it's kind of a cheat one, but would love to hear kind of how you felt about the reception, especially a statement like that from such a reputable source. Does it feel like that to you?
Yeah, when I read that article from American Songwriter, it was so humbling and incredible, really, to hear them say that and hear them call the record a masterpiece. And it's just like, at the end of the day, I am a songwriter and musician and singer who just wants to make the most honest and vulnerable music that I can. Mm-hmm. And that being said, I am so proud of this album. I've put so much hard work into it, and I'm so proud of it. I really think that it's the best group of songs that I could put together at this given time. And so to be able to work so hard on an album over the past 3 years and put my blood, sweat, and tears into it, and then have a report like that from somebody as reputable as American Songwriter, it just means the world to me. It's everything. I mean, as songwriters and as a guitar player and musicians, I mean, we live and breathe on how people interpret our art. And so that was amazing. It was so incredible to be able to read their review.
Yeah, oh, outstanding. So tell me, who were you working with in the studio for this one? Because again, like looking back to the story that we did about the project, and by extension, the Continuum project, I love that because obviously the creative relationship between you and Christian, that's a pretty special kind of one of a kind initiative,
Yeah.
and how that all came together. So how did you go about like tapping who you were going to work with for this one? And I guess just how did that previous experience inform those decisions this time around?
Christian Bush will always be a brother to me in this life, and I expect to be creating and writing and doing lots of stuff with him in the future and for the rest of my career. He's just such a brilliant human being, and I really think all of the work that I did with him through the project and the Continuum project really set the groundwork for me figuring out how to write this next record.
Nice.
Going into the studio for this record, I worked with Dan Huff on this project, and Dan has been a producer I've always wanted to work with from the beginning of when I moved to Nashville 10 years ago. I put Dan Huff's name on a vision board and was like, one day I'm going to work with him. I mean, he's arguably one of the best guitar players on the planet. He's, he used to be a session guitar player in LA and played on records like Michael Jackson and Madonna, and then came to Nashville and became one of the most sought after producers here, basically made Keith Urban who he is, and produces everybody from Kane Brown to Lady A to Brett Young to Russell Dickerson to yours truly. And so he's just so gifted in terms of like the spectrum of what he can produce. And also as a guitar player, it is so valuable to me having a producer who can speak the language. Shortly after Heart Theory came out, Keith Urban texted me and he's like, Lindsay, fantastic job on your record. How awesome is it to work with Dan, somebody who can speak guitar talk? And I'm like, Keith, that is so true. It's so special because having a producer who really understands what my mind goes through when I'm sitting in the hot seat playing a guitar solo is so valuable. And the fact that he became my guitar coach, just as a football coach is the coach for the football team, he became my guitar coach for my guitar solos and playing guitar on this record. And he let me do my thing. I mean, he would sit me down and be like, okay, play. And then he would just guide me. And it was just incredible how much I learned from him, from a guitar aspect, also from a vocal aspect. He really pushed me out of my comfort zone and I think ultimately carved me into a different artist through recording this record. So, and that's all to be said, he's like one of the nicest human beings. He's like so down to earth and just such a good guy to hang around. And so I loved working on this record with Dan Huff, and I really think that I've become a different artist because of him.
Oh, right on. You touch on something again I wanted to jump on. But yeah, I often like to ask artists about, when they're putting together an album or I guess any collection in the studio, like how much thought are you giving to how that material is going to translate to the live stage? And I'm particularly interested in your case, of course, because you're a guitarist and,
Yeah.
a very gifted one at that. Like, is there ever a case where when you're working on arrangements, working on a studio version of a song that you're maybe making some kind of consideration for how things are going to translate live and maybe making sure that all of the parts, both vocal and guitar, can kind of work out harmoniously when you don't have kind of infinite tracks to work with?
So I look at as playing live shows and writing songs and being in the studio as three different parts of the brain.
Right.
And I love all of them. Probably playing live and being on the stage is my home because that's where I grew up. Like I started playing shows when I was 10 years old, and it's truly where I feel the most at home. But I look at all of them as different things. Don't get me wrong. When I'm writing songs, I definitely write grooves and elements that I know I can just sink into my element in front of thousands of fans singing along. And that's where I always think about live in the back of my mind. But recording a record and recording a song in the studio is just a different thing, especially in guitar solo world. I feel that less is more oftentimes, and there's a space to play, a guitar solo. I look at guitar solos as additional lyrics to a song.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the studio, I will play certain things that I wouldn't necessarily approach the same live. And so oftentimes in the studio, I'll play exactly what I feel that song is needed, because that's how the song is going to be sitting in concrete for perpetuity for the rest of time. And live, I'm always in the studio, I'm making mental notes. I'm like, okay, live, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. But then when it comes to my band and I looking at a live show, all rules are off. You know, we extend solos, we extend intros, we extend outros. I really want to make the live show full of those special moments. And
Hmm.
all of those can't necessarily be captured the same way in the studio on a recording. So I do look at them as different headspaces, but I'm always in the back of my mind plotting, okay, in the live show, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And so in COVID right now, it's been like so hard for my band and I to, you know, live with this new record and learn these songs and keep mental notes while we can't play shows right now. And it's fine because we're just keeping a long list for when we can get out there and play it.
Yeah, all right on. Taken in stride. Well, I guess as the title alludes to, but and you've spoken about it in interviews leading up to this, that Heart Theory very much in large part, a heartbreak record, and I guess kind of exploring and dissecting some of the emotions, experiences that go along with that. Yeah, I'm curious because first off, I should say, like, I think you do a great job of really seamlessly blending like the personal and obviously individually resonant material with wider, kind of more universal feelings and imagery that, you know, anyone can jump on. Like all this ask, you know, it's a very common subject in a broad perspective, especially with regards to country music in particular. So I'm just wondering about, how you found that experience of working with a very familiar topic, but I think you did it in a way that feels very fresh and very not stale. I guess that's the opposite of fresh, but yeah, just curious to get your thoughts on how you tie that together and you know, made something that stands out despite being a very well-trod subject.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as human beings on this planet, we all go through many moments of transformation in our lives. And whether that transformation is from heartbreak or the loss of a loved one or losing your job or going through a global pandemic, I mean, regardless of the reason, we always are constantly going through these like new plateaus and transformational times. And one way to articulate that process is called the 7 stages of grief. And so I was about halfway through writing this record when I realized I was writing these songs in order of my process of how I was going through this time in my life. And, you know, this record isn't about one relationship in particular. It's about heartbreak in general, really. Because I feel like when you go through a breakup, you kind of are forced to look back on every past relationship you've had and, you know, analyze the patterns that go on and really see how you've shown up well, how you haven't shown up well in the past. And so I think it's just like it's a constant evaluation. And so I was about halfway through writing this record when I was like, you know, how cool would it be to write a record in order of my process and write a concept album? And the 7 stages of grief is just one way of articulating that process. But let's say I took the 7 stages of grief and track 1 started in stage 1 of shock and then went shock, denial, anger, all the way to the last stage of acceptance, being able to look at yourself in the mirror and accept yourself for everything that's happened to you in your life and everything that has made you into the person as you wake up to today. And listeners can sort of hear me unravel slowly through all the tracks. And so that's what I did. I wrote a concept album, and it was so much more natural than even like waking up and being like, all right, today I must write a song about denial. Like I was just writing songs how I felt, you know, and probably for this record, I was sifting through 200 plus songs. So there was a lot of songs in between the songs that I ultimately chose on the record, but I essentially wrote it in order because it was my process, you know. As I was looking at my songs that I turned into my publishing company, I would look at like title date, title date, title date, title date, and you could see me like slowly get to a healthier spot.
Interesting. Yeah, I encourage people to check out Heart Theory, available right now, lindsayell.com, the home base for everything. A couple more quick ones before I let you go. This one came up in speaking with one of your peers not too long ago, Mackenzie Porter. And just talking about how, like, over the last 10 years, it seems, you know, the Canadian country, I guess, industry, we'll call it, but obviously the artists that are a product of that, you know, I just think the profile and quality of the output and abundance of quality output has really been on the up over the last few years. And I mentioned Mackenzie because she was saying that like when she was first kind of getting into her career down in Nashville, she kind of felt like there was a stigma around Canadian artists, and maybe it was just sort of a second tier in some people's eyes. Whereas she said that in her experience, that's really changed and almost flipped, and pointed to the success of artists, including a lot of female artists, you, Mackenzie, Megan, and like just saying that it seems to be kind of a watershed moment for Canadian country music. I know you've been down in Nashville for a decade, and obviously your success isn't just north of the border by any means. But yeah, I guess I'm just wondering if that's something that you've seen and maybe feel a part of, and just get your thoughts on kind of how our scene here, with a lot of folks that are based in Nashville, has developed over that time, and how you're feeling about it now.
Yeah, it's been incredible to watch. We have like a little conglomerate of Canucks down here in Nashville, and I love them all so dearly. And we kind of stick together and look out for each other. For sure, Mackenzie and Tennille and Megan. And I'm so proud. I'm so proud of our Canadian country music scene and our Canadian music scene in general. It's been so rewarding to watch the quality of even like the recording, the writing, just the music sonically in general change and get like so much deeper and more interesting over the past, I really want to say 5 years. Like I'm so proud of my fellow Canadian musicians, because I think that the quality that songwriters are writing and artists are recording is at an all-time high. And I think it's why you're seeing a lot more Canadians, sign record deals south of the border, and still have business up north and south. And I've always looked at it at more of an international level. I'm always Canadian. I will always be a Canadian citizen, but I want to be able to tour around the world playing my music and sharing my message. And so it wasn't necessarily well, I can do this here and I can do that there. It was more just like, I just want to reach as many people as I can. I want to help as many people as I can. I feel that music is this universal quality that can bring us together, and to truly lean into its potential, I didn't want to be held down by borders.
Yeah. All right, on. Last one for you. You told us on what's been keeping you busy lately. Again, we've got to preface it with just the goalposts are always shifting these days. But what's on the horizon for you the next few months? What are the goals? Any boxes you want to check off now that Heart Theory has seen the light of day? What do you have on the calendar that you're looking forward to, or that we should be looking forward to?
So 2020 has just been a whirlwind, and it changes day by day. I mean, as we postpone shows, then we postpone them further. And as far as touring, who knows when we're going to be able to get back out there on the road. I cannot wait to get back out there. As far as a few of my friends have done a few social distancing shows, it just is more important for everybody to be staying home and staying safe right now. And so I hope we can get back to touring, pretty soon in 2021. But for the rest of the year, it's mainly just going to be shooting a lot of cool content around Heart Theory and truly lifting this record up and hoping that it can be heard by the ears that need to hear it, as well as, writing and being creative and having time to really create space to continue to make really cool art.
Oh, right on. Again, love it. Speaking with the incomparable Lindsay Ell, lindsayell.com. Heart Theory available now. Keep an eye on the site socials for anything coming up in the next few weeks. And there, always a treat getting to connect. And all the best as you keep pushing forward through these strange times.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's so great to talk to you.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for watching. Catch you later.